Hello, this is Cheryl Wilson, and I want to show you how to make this beautiful, incredible abstract painting. This is a 20 by 20. I call it the Circle of Depth. Although this is a 20 by 20, if you hang on, I'll show you how to make this and how to make something like this even larger. So this is a 20 by 20 canvas. It is at 1.5 inch thick, and I am using a palette knife, and they're different sizes. I'm showing you a smaller one. I'm using extra heavy gesso. You can use modeling paste, but I like the heavy gesso on this. Again, it takes about 48 hours for it to dry, but I'm just smearing it in a somewhat thick manner on my canvas here. I am not being ultra careful as to where smoothing it out, but I'm trying to keep the thickness about the same. So just smearing it, I'm making sure I get it to the edges. I'm using probably maybe a half a jar on this painting, but the effect of this painting is absolutely beautiful. So the thickness that you put on can be adjusted according to what you want to have the thickness to be. I put probably 1/4 inch of the thickness on my painting, but you can see I'm just smearing it pretty evenly. Some places it's not really as even. I even let some of the gesso somewhat hang off the edge. I wanted it to be a very free, not an exact painting. I'm scraping the sides a little bit. You'll see when I use a trowel, and there's so many different types of trowels you can use, that I pick up some gesso and I just scoop it over to the side, and then I just put it back in my jar so I don't waste any of it. So there it is. It's not very even. Now you can measure out your canvas, and then you can determine where the middle is if you are someone who likes to be extremely exact. So I'm measuring this out 20. There I put a little dot, and then I go the other way, kind of find out where the middle is. Okay, I was pretty much right on target, so I give myself a little dot, and I start out with the attempt of it being somewhat very structured. But I am not that type of an artist. I am very messy, very carefree. So to me, a little of a messiness even in art like this is what I love. So you could be very precise in bringing your trowel around. Now this is a trowel that I got in, I think this is grouting for like in the plumbing area, but I get my trowels. You can either get them on Amazon. I have a link there where you can find this particular one. You can get things at the art store. There is a whole handful of different mark making tools. This has a deep tooth, so this is pretty deep when I get done. And there again, I am not as concerned about it being perfect. I am not, that's the type of artist I am. I am very spontaneous, and I leave the lumps. So that's what I love about this art, or this particular technique. And I'm scooping some of that extra back in. Now you're going to want to clean that trowel off. I go over there and clean it off. I have paper towel beside me, but you don't want that to dry for 48 hours or even 24 hours, or you're going to have to you're going to have to scrape it off. So I clean off my tools. Now here I will let this dry for 2 days, and it all depends on your thickness. If it was thicker, you're going to have to let it dry for even longer than that. So I set this piece aside and I come back, and voila, 2 days later, I bring it back. Now, my feeling was this was just as beautiful as it was. I could have left it just like that. It was beautiful. But for the purpose of this, I'm adding, there's a Titan Buff, which is a fluid acrylic, and the titanium white, which is the high flow. The reason, oh, there I'm showing you some of the flakes, interference gold and the mica flakes that give it like a little bit of a pop. And there is, this is a copper. Of course, that is, you know, you don't have to use that one. If you, in fact, later on you'll see me add it, but then I tone it down. I start with the high flow because it goes into the grooves. Now I'm adding some of the Titan Buff. Any colors that you choose at this point will work fine. I'm using just a brush to push it down into the grooves, and that middle is more fluidy art paint, and that is the Titan Buff. Again, you could leave this right now as the way it is and just paint on the outside white. I mean, you don't have to add you know, a lot of color to this if that's what you're going for, because this style is just beautiful. I could have just added you know, white to the whole thing with a little bit of the Titan Buff. So any time here, I could have stopped and I would have been perfectly happy with the painting as you know, what I had. But I wanted you to see what adding some of the golds and metallics, because that's what this technique is all about, is showing you some different things you can add to this painting. Now I'm rubbing in a little bit more of the Titan Buff around to, so it's not just right there in the middle. Just beautiful. You, like I said, you can make this huge. You could have this 4 times as big and have 4 of these circles on a painting. If it was like a 72-inch by 48, measure it out, and then you could have 4 blocks of this. Or you could just have one great big one. You could have a great big canvas, and there's different things that you could do, but it's the technique of using the very heavy gesso and pushing your paint down in the grooves to give this, it's almost like a sculpture, to give this some life and bring in the colors that you have in your room, or colors that you like. You can even go with like grays and blacks to match some of the other paintings. Now I'm bringing in some of the mica flakes. And this just, when it dries, it gives like a sparkle. It doesn't look like there's a lot. It's a little thick, but it dries with like a sparkle in the painting, which is absolutely beautiful. So I'm just rubbing that with a smaller paintbrush just around, not any particular, it's very random, pushing it down in, leaving some chunks in a place a little bit heavier. Again, I could stop the painting at this particular point if I wanted to. Now I'm going to add some iridescent gold. Trying to see if you can see some of the sparkle of the, like the glitter that's in that paint. That's an iridescent gold. This is interference that I'm adding. But right now I'm showing you the copper. So what I'm adding right now is the copper, and you'll see me grab a sponge, makeup sponge, kind of like a wedge, to really blend this in. So I'm showing you this in case you want to add some of the other metallics. I found that I really liked the whites and the beiges and the tight and buff. So you'll see me go back with the white again to kind of mute that copper down. But it's fun. You know, it all depends on what some of your other paintings are. Or if you're painting this for a commission, if they want some metallics, you could certainly add some of this in to give the blending of some of the other paintings together. So at this point I'm looking at it and I'm feeling I want some more of that, the white in there. Because when I initially painted this, that was what I had in mind. So I'm scrubbing it back in. But the beauty of it is you can do that. So you can add and take away. But the beauty of this is some of that copper is still underneath. You can see the sponge, an idea of what the sponge looks like. But some of that copper will remain in there, which gives it just a little bit more of an interest. So I hope this gives you an idea and some, inspiration to get out some of your tools and put some beautiful, thick marks on your canvas and just see what you come up with and see how large of a painting. I mean, this looked beautiful, 3 smaller ones, 3 10 by 10s and 3, there's so much you could do.